My friend checked the bank records for my grandma's estate. My uncle had made 87 withdrawals over 18 months. He stole $87,500 from me while telling me the lawyers were just slow. I never thought I'd be filing a fraud report against someone I used to call my second dad. But here I am, sitting in the lobby of a Multnomah County law firm, holding a stack of bank statements that prove the man who taught me to ride a bike stole $87,500 from my dead grandmother's estate. My hands are shaking, not from fear, from the kind of anger that only comes when someone you love looks you dead in the eyes and lies for 18 straight months. This is that story. My name is Marin Cole. I'm 31. I work as a pediatric speech therapist at a private clinic in the Selwood neighborhood of Portland, Oregon. I help kids who can't find their words. Ironic, considering how long it took me to find mine when it mattered most. I still drive my 2016 Honda Civic because it runs fine. I pack my lunch 4 days out of 5. I'm not flashy. I'm careful. That's just who I've always been. My dad, Brian Cole, died of pancreatic cancer when I was 19. Diagnosis to funeral was 11 weeks. After that, everything in my world tilted sideways. I was a sophomore at Portland State, barely keeping it together, barely showing up to class. And then Uncle Dean appeared. Dean was my dad's younger brother. He showed up to my college graduation with flowers and a card that said, "Your dad would be so proud." He helped me move into my first apartment in the Hawthorne district, carried every box up 3 flights of stairs without complaining once. He called me every Sunday at 7, every single Sunday, for years. When people asked if I had family, I'd say, "I've got my Uncle Dean." I meant it like other people mean, "I've got my dad." But here's the thing about Dean Cole. He's 54 years old, and he's been a car salesman, a real estate agent, a crypto day trader, and a fitness coach. Never any of those things for longer than 14 months. He's twice divorced. He owes back taxes from 2021. He tells a great story, though. Always picks up the check at dinner, even when you can tell he probably shouldn't. People describe him as charming first and reliable never. I knew all of this. I just thought it didn't apply to me. Our grandmother, Elaine Cole, passed away in March 2024. She was 86, sharp as a tack until the very end. She'd been a school librarian for 33 years, lived in a modest craftsman house in the Woodstock neighborhood. Bookshelves in every room. The estate was valued at $134,000. Her will was clear. Split it evenly between Marin and Dean. $67,000 each. Simple. Dean volunteered to handle the probate paperwork. "I've got time, kiddo," he told me over the phone. "You focus on your kids at the clinic. I'll deal with the lawyers." I didn't hesitate, not even for a second. I trusted him completely. He was my dad's brother. He was the man who showed up when nobody else did. Why would I question that? For 6 months after probate began, I'd ask casual questions. "How's it going with the estate? Any updates from the attorney?" And I always got the same kind of answer. "The court's backed up. The attorney's dragging his feet. Oregon probate takes forever. You know that." One night I Googled it, read that probate could take 12 to 18 months. I closed my laptop and stopped worrying. By month 10, Dean had a new truck, a loaded Ram 1500, dark gray, leather interior. I noticed it in his driveway when I dropped off a birthday card. He said he'd gotten a great deal from a buddy. He also started talking about a condo he was looking at in Bend. Ski access, hot tub, the whole pitch. Something flickered in the back of my mind. A question I didn't want to ask. But I pushed it down. This was my uncle. My dad's brother. The Sunday phone call guy. At month 14, Thanksgiving dinner, I brought up the estate. Just casually. Any word on Grandma's probate? Dean put his fork down and snapped. Can you stop bringing it up? I'm handling it. The whole table went quiet. His girlfriend stared at her plate. I felt my face go hot. I didn't bring it up again. Not for 4 more months. 4 months of silence because I was afraid of making him angry. I hate that I did that. I hate that I let his temper buy him more time. Then one afternoon in September 2025, my coworker, Jess Tanaka, walked into the break room during lunch. Jess is a bookkeeper on the side. She'd offered months ago to look over the estate documents if I ever wanted a second pair of eyes. I'd finally taken her up on it, handed her a folder of everything Dean had forwarded me. She set that folder down on the table, pulled out a chair and said, "Marin, I need you to sit down, because what I found in these documents is really, really bad." A few weeks before Jess put that folder on my desk, I'd been venting to her during lunch at the clinic. Jess Tanaka is 33, works part-time as a bookkeeper, and does freelance accounting for small businesses around Portland. She's sharp with numbers and blunt with opinions. I told her 18 months had passed, and I still hadn't seen a single cent from my grandmother's estate. Jess put down her sandwich and looked at me. That's not normal. Even in Oregon, that's not normal. Do you have copies of any of the probate filings? I didn't. I'd never asked for them. Not once in 18 months. Jess told me to request everything. The court filings, the trust account statements, the distribution schedule, all of it. I texted Dean that night. Kept it casual. Hey, can you forward me the paperwork from Grandma's estate? Just want to have copies for my records. He sent a few documents the next day. Just enough to seem cooperative. But Jess noticed something right away. The account was structured as a joint trust account at a regional bank, and Dean was listed as co-trustee. That alone made her suspicious. She told me to authorize a records request for the full transaction history. I signed the form that afternoon. What Jess found made her go quiet for 2 full days before she told me. Over the course of 16 months, Dean had made 43 separate cash withdrawals. Most of them were between $900 and $2,400, always just under the thresholds that trigger automatic flags at the bank. He'd also transferred $31,000 in 4 lump sums to a personal brokerage account at a discount trading platform. His name on the account, his social security number. Not even an attempt to hide it. The total was $87,500. Gone. I called Dean that same evening. My voice was steady, but barely. I was standing in my kitchen, gripping the edge of the counter so hard my knuckles were white. Dean, I need to talk to you about Grandma's trust account. What about it? There's $87,000 missing, 43 withdrawals, transfers to a brokerage account in your name. I have the statements, Dean. Silence. 3 seconds. 5. Then his voice shifted. Not apologetic, not even defensive. Angry. Your grandmother wanted me to have that money. I was her son in every way that mattered after Brian died. You were just the name on the paper, Marin. Just the name. She put my name on it because she wanted me to have half. That's what the will says. The will doesn't know what she told me in private. You think you know everything because you have a job and a little apartment? I gave up years taking care of her. Years. You stole from me, Dean. You stole from a dead woman's wishes. Don't you dare call it stealing. I earned that money. Every single dollar. He hung up. I sat on my couch in the dark for 2 hours after that call. I didn't cry. I was past crying. It felt like grief, except the person I was grieving was still alive and had just screamed at me on the phone. The uncle who walked me down the hallway of my college dorm, who held my hand at my father's funeral, who called me kiddo every single week for 12 years. That man had looked at my grandmother's money and decided he deserved all of it. I kept replaying one sentence. You were just the name on the paper. That line would stay with me for months. It still does. But I am not the kind of person who crumbles. I sat there until almost midnight, and then I got up, opened my laptop, and created a new folder. I labeled it Evidence. Jess became my anchor through everything that came next. She organized every bank statement chronologically. She built a spreadsheet tracking each of the 43 withdrawals with the date, the amount, and a running total. She cross-referenced the brokerage transfers with Dean's personal account activity. Jess worked on it during her lunch breaks, after her kids went to bed, on Saturday mornings with coffee. She treated it like it was her own money that had been taken. One night she texted me at 11 and said, if this goes to court, we're handing them a case they can read in 15 minutes. I believed her. Jess doesn't exaggerate. But I still didn't have a lawyer. I'd looked up a few names online, read some reviews, but I didn't know where to start. Estate fraud isn't something you just Google and figure out on a Tuesday. Then the following Saturday, there was a knock on my front door. It was my next-door neighbor, Kurt Anderson. Retired guy, early 60s. Always quiet, always polite. He stood on my porch with his hands in his jacket pockets and said, I heard you on the phone the other night through the wall. I used to be a paralegal, and I think I know exactly who you need to call. Kurt Anderson was 58 years old and had spent 12 years as a paralegal at a Multnomah County elder law firm before retiring early because of a back injury. He was quiet about it, never made it anyone's business. But he still had contacts, and within 3 days of that conversation on my porch, he connected me with an attorney named Laura Fisk at Greystone and Fisk. They specialized in estate fraud and fiduciary abuse cases. Exactly what I needed. Laura reviewed Jess's spreadsheet and the bank records in her office on a Tuesday morning. She flipped through the pages slowly, didn't say a word for almost 10 minutes. Then she looked up and said it was one of the most clearly documented cases of trustee self-dealing she'd seen in years. 43 structured cash withdrawals designed to stay under detection thresholds. 4 wire transfers to Dean's personal brokerage account totaling $31,000. And then the part that made my chest tight. Forged email authorizations. Dean had created a fake email address mimicking mine to approve transfers out of the trust account. He'd spelled my name right and everything. He'd pretended to be me to steal from me. Laura filed a civil fraud claim in Multnomah County Circuit Court in October 2025. That same week, I filed a report with the Portland Police Bureau's Financial Crimes Unit. Dean did not go quietly. He hired a budget attorney and filed a counterclaim arguing that our grandmother had verbally promised him a larger share of the estate. He said his role as her caretaker entitled him to additional compensation. He called my mother, his ex-sister-in-law, and told her I was tearing the family apart over money. He posted on Facebook that he was being persecuted by his own niece for trying to honor his mother's dying wishes. 14 people liked it. 3 of them were people I'd met at Thanksgiving. His ex-wife Sharon called me one evening. Her voice was soft, almost pleading. He's your family, Marin. Families don't sue each other. Just take what's left and move on. I told her there was almost nothing left to take. She didn't have a response to that. Then one afternoon in November, I walked out of the clinic to my car, and Dean was there, standing next to my Civic in the parking lot. He didn't threaten me. He cried, stood there with red eyes and shaking hands, and said, "I'm going to lose everything, kiddo. Is that what you want?" I walked past him without a word, got in my car, locked the doors, drove home, filed for a restraining order the next morning. Laura Fisk's strategy was methodical. She subpoenaed Dean's personal bank records, his brokerage statements, and his tax returns going back 3 years. What they revealed was worse than I expected. Dean had been in financial freefall since 2022. He owed $14,000 in back taxes. He'd maxed out 3 credit cards, and he'd borrowed $22,000 against his own children's 529 college savings plans. That money was supposed to pay for his son Tyler's junior year at Oregon State and his daughter Kayla's tuition at Portland Community College. He'd raided his kids' futures along with my grandmother's legacy. The brokerage account showed he'd burned through nearly all of the stolen $87,500 on failed options trades and crypto positions, almost all of it gone. Laura presented the full picture to the court, a pattern of financial desperation, deception, and exploitation. Not a grieving son honoring his mother's wishes, a man raiding every account he could access. Kurt didn't just make the introduction and disappear. He helped me prepare for my deposition. He explained legal terminology in plain English at his kitchen table over cups of black coffee. He drove me to 2 court hearings when I was too anxious to drive myself. One morning before a hearing, sitting in his truck in the courthouse parking lot, he turned to me and said, "You're not being greedy, Marin. You're being the only person in this family who's protecting Elaine's wishes." I almost broke down right there. That was the first time anyone had said my grandmother's name out loud in months. Everyone else just called it the situation or the thing with Dean. Kurt called it what it was. He called her by her name. The week before the final hearing, Laura called me at the clinic during my afternoon session. I stepped into the hallway and she said, "I need to tell you something. Dean's own children just contacted my office, Tyler and Kayla. They want to testify against their father."
The hearing took place in January 2026 at the Multnomah County Courthouse. I sat at the plaintiff's table with Laura Fisk. Dean sat across the aisle with his budget attorney, wearing a wrinkled blazer and looking 10 years older than the last time I'd seen him properly. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Not once. Laura presented the full case. The bank records, the forged email authorizations, the brokerage losses, the structured withdrawals, all 43 of them laid out on a timeline that showed exactly how calculated it was. Then she played a recorded voicemail Dean had left me months earlier. His own voice filled the courtroom. That money was sitting there doing nothing. I put it to work. The judge looked up from his papers. I watched his expression change. Then came the testimony that broke the room open. Inhale. Tyler Cole, 22 years old, Dean's own son, took the stand. His voice was shaking but clear. He gripped the edge of the witness box with both hands. "My dad told me my college fund was invested in something safe. I found out 2 months ago it was gone. All of it. $22,000. My tuition, my books, my rent deposit. He took it without asking, and he lied about it for over a year." Kayla Cole, 19, had submitted a written statement. Laura read it aloud. "I don't know how to trust my father anymore. He looked me in the face at Christmas and said everything was fine. Nothing was fine. I had to defer my enrollment because the money he promised wasn't there." I looked at Dean while those words were being read. He stared at the table. His attorney put a hand on his arm. Dean didn't move. His lawyer attempted to argue that Dean had intended to repay all funds once his investments matured. The judge cut him off mid-sentence. "Breathe, Mr. Cole. The evidence before this court shows not a misunderstanding but a sustained and deliberate pattern of fraud. You exploited your role as trustee, you forged authorization documents, and you raided accounts belonging to your niece and your own children. This court is not sympathetic. Full restitution of the $87,500, plus $23,000 in compensatory damages for legal fees and emotional distress. Dean was ordered to liquidate assets to cover the judgment, the Ram 1500, his remaining brokerage holdings, a storage unit full of equipment from his various failed business ventures. The Portland Police Bureau's investigation remained open, with potential criminal charges for forgery and theft by deception still on the table. His Facebook post got screenshotted and circulated among the extended family, aunts, cousins. Old family friends who had initially believed his persecution story went silent one by one as the court documents became public. Tyler and Kayla both stopped speaking to their father entirely. Tyler transferred to Portland State to save money and moved in with a roommate. Kayla re-enrolled at Portland Community College on a financial hardship scholarship. Neither attended Dean's birthday that March. 4 months after the ruling, I received a handwritten letter from Dean, 3 pages long. He said he was sorry, not for what he did, for how things turned out. He blamed his financial spiral, his divorces, his depression. He said he missed me. He asked if we could start over. I read it twice, folded it back into the envelope, and put it in a drawer. I didn't write back. I told Jess later, he's still not apologizing for the right thing. He's sorry he got caught. That's not the same. Inhale. With the recovered funds, I set aside my rightful half of the estate, $67,000 in a trust I manage myself. I donated $15,000 to the Multnomah County Library Foundation's Children's Literacy Program in my grandmother's name. There's a small brass plaque now on a reading nook shelf in the Woodstock branch. It says, "For Elaine Cole, who believed every child deserves a story." I also quietly set aside $5,000 for Tyler's tuition. Laura Fisk's office mailed it to him anonymously. He doesn't know it came from me. I kept working at the clinic in Selwood. I kept driving my 2016 Civic. I started seeing a therapist on Tuesday evenings to work through what I call the grief of someone who's still alive. People ask me if I regret it. Dragging my uncle to court, putting our family's ugliest secrets in front of a judge. I don't. My grandmother spent 40 years teaching children to read. She saved that money one careful dollar at a time. She trusted it would go where she intended. Dean broke that trust. I just put it back together. Paper trails don't lie, and neither do the people who finally decide to stop being silent.